Hi everyone, welcome back to River and Rune, and thank you guys for joining me on the channel. I'm very excited to see what the runes have to say for this week ahead. Also, we are in a new Celtic month. We just went into the month of the holly, which is a very fun month for me. I like the holly. Holly is a very special plant, a very special tree. It has the element of fire within it. It's been used for spear making because of how strong the wood is. In fact, my rune set is carved from holly. I made it myself. And holly, the significance of it is that it rules the later half of the year. In other words, it rules the dark half of the year. So because we have just left the energy of the summer solstice, every day after the summer solstice, the nights become longer and longer, right? Holly, being an evergreen, right, rules this time because within its bark, within its trunk, it carries the fire of life, and it carries the torch of the summer's energy through the winter until it can pass the torch to the oak, where the oak rules the lighter half of the year. So, torchbearer, a lot of this beautiful energy of restoring our faith in ourselves, which I think is really beautiful and seems to be a theme this past week. A lot of self-trust. So we'll see what the runes have to say for the week ahead. I'm very excited, especially since we are heading closer to Lugnasa, which is the Celtic festival of harvest. So, and that's taking place on August 1st, I believe. Okay. It seems to me that we have a Norn reading today, which is very exciting. And I like that for some reason. It seems to have suddenly got dark outside and like a storm is coming. And I was like, ooh, it felt so, the energy of this reading feels so epic. It feels so, like a lot is writing on this week for many of us. I don't know why. But this is the feeling that I get, because the song that came to mind and that I sang to help set up the space, as you guys know, was again another song from the Lord of the Rings, because I love the Lord of the Rings. But it's a song that talks about legacy, right? What will be your enduring legacy? What will be the thing that you will leave behind? How do you want to live your life such that when people look back and remember you, what will they remember about you, right? That's heavy stuff. This is very heavy stuff. And the sky got dark, and there's a Norn reading, and for those of you who don't know, the Norns are the equivalent of the three fates in Greek tradition, or I'm sure many of you have stumbled upon as it starts to rain. So if you hear the rain picking up on the microphone, you know why. And I hope it doesn't bother you. But for those of you who have read Shakespeare, the three weird sisters, weird comes from the Old English weird, which means fate, or destiny, or a thread of something that leads us forward. And that itself was developed from the Norns, right? The Norns were the three sisters of fate in the Nordic tradition. And so we have here a Norn reading where three runes fell out upright, in the sense that I can see the runes, and everything else fell downward. So how we read a Norn reading is very unique, because we have the rune on the left represents the past, the rune in the center represents the present moment, and the rune in the right hand side usually represents the future. But the thing about the Norns is that fate is much more Fate is very simple, but it's through that simplicity that it never finishes what it has to say. So we draw a lot of complexity from even the simplest things. So even though it seems like one thread that leads from the past into the future that we happen to be walking upon in the present moment, fate is much more entwined, it's much more threaded and woven. There's tapestries of fate. There's things that lead us forward stronger than other things. There's ways in which what we have done in the past forms what we perceive of the present moment, and eventually that itself influences the future. So whenever I do a Norn reading, I tend to start in the middle. I tend to start in the present, because it's through the present moment that we can understand the past and look forward into a different future. So we have here Ewas, and it fell on its side. And I think this is very significant, because especially with the theme of legacy and with the theme of how we want things to go in our lives, Ewas represents change, transformation, metamorphosis. It represents as well right relationship with oneself and partnerships in one's life, especially when it's upright. When it's Merkstaff, when it's in the reverse position, it often represents to me a sense of loss, a sense of directionlessness. So having it fall on its side feels to me that today into tomorrow there may be a sense of inner conflict about where things need to go, where you may want them to go, how you see your future panning out for you. There's a lot of internal chatter, it feels. And a lot of this internal chatter, looking into the past, is influenced by this Berkano in Merkstaff position. It's influenced by the social anxieties. It's influenced by a lot of the internal processes that were influenced by our social, cultural, perhaps economic circumstances that we experienced in our childhood or in our younger, more formative years. In the same way that we would have situations that shape our perspective on ourselves. For example, if you had a particular lover in high school who exhibited similar abandonment wounds as you did, and it was not able to be properly spoken on, right? That particular experience may color the experiences that you have later on in life with other partners or with other experiences that remind you of that one, right? So this past is really influencing this present moment where there's so much abundance waiting for us, but it's time to make a decision. It's time to quiet the internal chatter and the internal conflict and walk forward into something new. But the future is interesting. The future is Isa. Isa is the rune of ice. It is a time of contraction. It is a time of pulling into oneself, a cooling off of energy. But even though in the cold, we may feel that contraction, in fact, when water freezes, it expands. It starts to organize itself such that it becomes crystalline. It becomes a crystal that holds within it the beauty of 1,000 faces. The conscious unfolding of divine structure as it puts itself in place. So the future is very beautiful, and it requires an internal restructuring as you become crystalline in what it is that you feel. But the reason why this is so important is because, like I said earlier, the fates are woven such that the past, present, and future are constantly informing one another about how things are in each other's domain. So, because of what has happened in the past and because of this Berkano in Merkstaff position, I would suggest that this week, this is going to be a very powerful week of pondering, a very powerful week of introspection, of looking into oneself and asking, what is it that you want from your experiences, which can sometimes be a very difficult endeavor. So of course, as you guys know, as I like to say, please be gentle with yourself in this process. It is very important that we practice self-compassion at this time, especially during this week, as the runes seem to be suggesting. So, Isa, this crystalline structure that is being formulated as the molecules of your soul start to find themselves such that they create this expansive nature. They push past the boundaries that have coalesced around it and are starting to wedge themselves open, right? But we have to be aware of what kind of water are we using in our lives so that it freezes and expands and becomes the beautiful crystal of ice, right? What kind of water is it? For example, if the water is murky, the ice will be murky. If the water is clear, the ice will be clear. If the water is heavy with lead, then the ice will be heavy with lead, right? So think of it in this way. The water of your emotions is very important to be paid attention to at this time. Look upon the placid lake of your soul. Clean the water, make it clear, so that as you start to formulate and become a part of this new crystalline way, as you expand further into who you are, as this week continues, as you start to expand and push back and open yourself up to greater understanding of who you are through this introspection, be sure that the water you're using is clear. Be sure that the water within is calm, has been understood. Because for me, the water of one's emotions becomes clear when you understand it, when you practice that self-compassion, when you look at yourself with the eyes of gentleness and with the eyes of a loving spirit, right? So that is the rune reading for this week. It's a little heavy, very interesting, and I think we can draw on the strength of holly. So for those of you who are interested, I would invite you to have a meditation where you contemplate on the power of holly, or you contemplate on the spirit of evergreen energy, the spirit of fire, what it means to cleanse the dross of your life, so that what is left is only the purest, the clearest form of you, I would say. So yes, keep that in mind. If you like this reading, please like and subscribe below. I really enjoy hearing the comments too, so if you guys are experiencing anything that is similar to what the Norns are talking about, or if you have any ways in which you find strength in yourself, I would love to hear that. How do you find strength in yourself? Where do you find that fortitude, that evergreen nature? Where do you find that inside of yourself? So, thank you guys for joining me on the channel. I very much appreciate you hanging out and sharing this practice with me. It means a lot. And of course, I look forward to sharing some more with you guys next week here on River and Rune. Alright? See you guys later. Bye!